Yes, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the show. We're here to talk all things Premier League, and we thought we'd do a fan debate show tonight. As ever, I'm your host, Dan Potts, and I've got a lit panel as always. Welcome. This is not your debut on the channel, of course, and you all know him from, well, every other Arsenal podcast that he's on. It's Magic Mike from the Gooners Pod, from the Hybrid Squad, from Football's 12th Man, from AFTV, from Lee Judges TV. We can just keep going, man. How are you, bruv?
Doing all right. Making my rounds this week for reasons we'll talk about later, but I appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to seeing the nice comments in the chat about me.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't always get nice comments in this chat, as Sava and LB will tell you. But
I've got a thick skin. I can take it.
Yeah,
Most of them are Arsenal fans on this, is it not, Dan? Or
well. Do you know what, LB? They're probably the worst. They're sometimes the worst.
Yeah,
the Arsenal fans.
actually
I'll
true.
tell you, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Listen, LB, you're awake, bruv. I know last night you was sleeping beauty, you mate. I mean, I don't know what happened.
Nah, bro, I've not been sleeping well, man. I can't lie. Yeah, the heat, is just a crazy, man. Like, yeah, I just not been sleeping well. So I didn't sleep well at all last night. I went to sleep and then just woke. I kept on waking up in the night. Tonight, I know it's going to be another horrendous one. I'm already fucking well up. You can probably tell from like the Krispy Kreme ice glaze effect that I've gone for. So yeah, man, we're just battling through, and autumn's soon coming in. So hopefully, we'll be fine in a couple of weeks, man.
Man, we're terrible over here, man. In the UK, it's like it's either too cold or too hot. Sava, how you doing, bruv?
I'm good. I like the weather. I like it. I'm half Greek, so yeah, just a shame I'm not in it. I'm sitting in front of streams or in front of screens all day long, talking to people like you, Arsenal fans. Yeah, it's good times. What was my life?
Well, listen, it's not bad. It's not bad times for you Spurs fans at the moment. You know, there's a lot of people getting carried away. I was listening on the back of LB's channel. LB's clearly worried. He's talking to his Man City fans about how Spurs could be a problem. You know, or is this? I think Liverpool, but Spurs could be a problem with Man City fans. That means you must be doing something right, Sava. Do you know what I mean? So, how is life as a Tottenham fan right now, bro?
I mean, look, it's 4 games, right? It's 4 games. As I've said to everyone that keeps talking about this, look, football fans, we're the most knee-jerk group of anything in the world, right? You lose 3 games and it is manager's got to go. It is dreadful. Everybody out, players out, manager out, owners out. You win 3 games in a row and it's, oh my God, we're in a title challenge. We're better than Man City. Daniel Levy's the best chairman in the world. And I'm just nowhere. I'm not on either side of that. I just think it's been a really good start. We're playing some really good football, which is, Dan, we streamed together all last year. You know me, man. I couldn't watch Antonio Conte football anymore, right? So we're playing good football. We're dominating every team that we're playing against. But it's early. We've got some big games coming up. We've got Sheffield United at home next, who I would expect to beat. Realistically, you've got to look at that and say, that's 3 points. If it's not, disappointed. And then we've got you lot away, followed by Liverpool at home. So I think we'll know a lot more after Liverpool and Arsenal. If we can come out of that with even if we can get 2 draws out of that, or we come out of that with 4 points or 6 points, whatever, then you're going to have to turn around and say, well, Spurs are a problem for teams. You lose both those games, and all of a sudden the narrative from fans changes to, oh, same old Spurs, you know, we can beat all the rubbish teams, but the good teams are going to beat us. So, look, let's have this conversation again after we've played Liverpool and Arsenal. But I've got nothing to complain about. We're playing some brilliant football, and there's life after Harry Kane when everyone told me that we'd get relegated without him. So, it is what it is.
He's too nice of a guy. I was going to make a silverware joke. I'm sitting here with more silverware in my hand after but
I don't get triggered by that.
Guy, actually.
I don't get triggered by silverware jokes. I make them myself. Don't worry about it. You're all right. We don't win anything. I know. Next.
You know what? It's good. It's a good segue actually, because I was saying this to a friend of mine today actually. And he was saying, oh, Spurs fans are getting a bit over the top, aren't they? A bit carried away, like 4 games in, and James Maddison's the best thing they've ever seen, and they're going to win the league and all this. And I was like, that you get that. But actually, the guys I speak to regularly don't say that. And Sava's one of those, right? But LB, I'll come to you, because I remember you saying with Harry Kane, Tottenham have a chance, one game a week, of actually doing something good this season. Now they've lost Harry Kane. They're actually looking pretty good at the moment. Son's found his shooting boots from last year at the moment. I know it's only one game, but he looked in good form. I think if Kulusevski and Richarlison can step up to where we know that they have been previously, certainly for Kulusevski in a Spurs shirt, Richarlison in an Everton and Watford shirt, then I think they've got some threats there. But for me, the first 11, it's looking pretty good at Tottenham. When you go past that, I don't see much else. And that's where I think Tottenham are and have been, to be fair, for a while. I know it seems like forever that Tottenham have had an unbelievable squad. We've always said they've had a good 11. Even in the Poch days where they were doing the unthinkable and getting in title races and going to Champions League finals, etc., they never really had 17, 18 players. They had like 12, 13 tops. And I still see that at Spurs. So, LB, talk to me. What are you saying about Spurs?
Well, listen, I thought, and I remember having this debate with Sava, I thought the narrative on Spurs was far too low at the start of the season. Everyone was like, nah, Spurs are shit, you know what I mean? And the facts are, Spurs had a good team. They've got a good team. They've got a great player in Son, who had a poor year last year, but he's still a great player. And, you know, if he can get his game back to where it's been in previous years, then wow. Kulusevski is a good player who again just needs to find a little bit of form. And they've got some good players in and around the team. I said it. There's a fact. Tottenham, as much as Sava might say, oh, there were games in hand or whatever, they were in the top four for a large part of the season until it all blew up. So they do have a good team. The narrative that was being written about Spurs before the start of the season was far too low. People were talking them down like they were some bare average team. They're not an average team. They're a good side who have a good chance of getting in the top five this season. Getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup, you can look at it two ways. One, it's super disappointing because Tottenham want to win trophies. Sava wants to see a trophy be lifted. But two, it probably increases their chances of getting into the top five. Now they've got one game a week. In fact, it probably increases the pressure on Ange and the team a little bit. So you could look at it and say, actually, probably wasn't a good idea because actually now there's more pressure being put on them to get top five. But listen, Tottenham have got a good squad. Well, not a good squad, sorry. They've got a good team and they've got a good chance of getting inside the top five this year, which, given what people were saying 6 weeks ago, you know, what an achievement that would be. It would be a remarkable achievement. But people were talking that Tottenham down in the summer far too much. Ridiculous.
Mike, it's interesting. I spoke earlier to you about rivalry and said that United are more rivals than Spurs in terms of Spurs being a geographical rival as opposed to one that fights for titles with us, etc., over the last 20, 30 years. But I think it's fair to say that Postecoglou's come in and has actually hit the ground running. And I remember me and you like arguing last year about Conte and me telling you that this was an ambitious move and you saying it was pure desperation, and it all blew up in my face and you were right. It was desperation and it didn't work. And you know, Sava and I have been speaking for a good 18 months. He never wanted the Conte football style and he hated it. And to be fair to him, this style of football already in the pre-season and the first few games is definitely better to watch than Antonio Conte. Now, will it win them anything? I don't know. They're out of one of the trophies already. They've got to go and win an FA Cup if they want silverware. But I think LB's made some good points. One thing he hasn't said, though, and I actually agree with, is everyone else around them don't look that great. So it isn't exactly like Tottenham have to be flawless to make sure they get into this top five because 12 teams look fantastic. For me, there's not many that I can't really name the top six with confidence and tell you that one team or the other is not or is going to be in it. It's just too hard for me at the moment.
Especially before teams like West Ham and Brighton, who are playing to the top of their capability, start getting into those European competitions for both of them, and we start seeing their squad get taxed. I mean, there's a few things I'm worried about as far as Spurs are concerned. As much as I was not scared by and actually was rather enjoying the Conte hire, I knew it would blow up in their face, and ultimately it did in spectacular fashion. I hate the Ange hire because, I mean, he's a good coach. I mean, I hate him as a rival because they've made a good decision, whether it was their second choice, third choice after Conte, after who knows what they, you know, Salvo would know better than I do about whether Poch ever had a chance of coming back or any of that talk. But they've got the right man, and that scares me. Now, we've seen it in sports a lot where a star player, a uniquely talented kind of talisman of a team. They've even got a nickname over here for a player, Patrick Ewing, that used to play for the New York Knicks in basketball, about how, they just kept getting almost there and almost there. And as soon as they retired, the team came together, and you see that all the time. Steven Gerrard, never won a title until he was gone, and then Liverpool went and surpassed him. It happens in sports that a team becomes more balanced, and that's my fear with Spurs right now as a rival, is that they're, with the right coach and without that one person that they have to constantly feed all the time, they're actually going to be a better football team. Now, what I don't think that they have is the squad to compete all season. I think that they go off of a cliff really quickly when you look at their first 4, 5, 6 players, and then everybody behind that. And we were in that same position for the last 6 or 7 years until very recently. So, I think it's a good year for Spurs to have a top 5 rather than a top 4, because I think 5th is right about there for what their upside is. But they're a team that at the beginning of the season, especially while they're all fresh, while they're all playing for the badge, while things haven't really gone wrong yet, no injuries, this is the time you don't want to be playing them, and this is usually the time you see them do well. But I'm not sure it lasts throughout the entire season.
It's a good year for everyone, isn't it? To have a top 5. You look at United, look at Brighton, who are flying now. Let's see how they get on when they're playing a game Thursday, Sunday. You know what I mean? The way that they play with that intensity, can you see them playing like that all year with the Europa League? I don't know. I think that they'll take a little bit of a dip. So if they want Champions League, they'll be looking at that 5th spot. So no, you're right, because the quality does drop, man. I mean, you take Maddison and Son out of that team.
It's not even Son. This is the thing. It's not. This is Maddison. Kulusevski's crap. No, let's not talk about Kulusevski. This guy is a waster. Anyway, don't get me started on that.
Do you think, Sava? Honestly,
mate, listen, I don't know. Everyone keeps telling me he's this good player. I don't know what he does.
Well, it can't be Richarlison that you're claiming that you're holding on to.
Trust me, Sava can't stand Richarlison.
Right. Let's be fair. Tottenham Hotspur, there are 4 players that we cannot see get injured. There are 4. In every team, there's a couple of players you can replace a fullback for a game or 2. You can place a wide man for a game or 2. But our core, right? We cannot replace Van de Ven or Romero at centre-half. And we cannot replace Basuma, who has been absolutely breathtaking so far this season, and Maddison, who's been sublime. The drop, I think look, LB and Mike have both said the same thing. The drop-off from these players here in the 11 to this down here in the second string is huge. Now, once a week, if we have one of those seasons, guys, where no one gets an injury, right? I know this is completely pie in the sky nonsense, what I'm about to say. No one gets an injury. They play every Saturday, I don't know, Sundays, but they play once a week, every Saturday. They then have 7 days to rest them and, train them, sporadically, and we wrap them in cotton wool. They play once a week. We're brilliant. Sure, we can get 4th. We can get 5th. Sure. The moment we start getting an injury, like you guys last year with Saliba, the moment Romero or Van de Ven are injured, the drop-off is huge and the defense isn't as good. The doggy, the drop-off from him to Ryan Sessegnon, Ben Davis is massive. Porro to Emerson Royale, Basuma to Højbjerg, right? Maddison to Lo Celso. These drop-offs are massive. And that's why, look, I'd love to say that I think LB's got a lot of faith in Spurs, and I love that he has. I think that's great. But the difficulty with this is you've got to remember this is a new manager as well, implementing a new style. And a lot of the players that we're playing at the moment are quite young as well. When you look at the likes of Van de Ven and Udogie, Papa Sarr, who's only 20 as well in midfield, Solomon's brand new, Van de Ven's brand new, Vicario's brand new. So I think at the moment, I think it's all good. It's great. I'm seeing a lot of people say, well, you've had an easy start. I don't think it's that easy. Brentford away, who lost 2 home games all last season. Man United, who finished in the Champions League. Bournemouth away, weren't bad. They weren't a bad team at all. And, all right, Burnley, if they've come up, but, there's got to be some credit there. You can't take 10 points from your first 12.
No easy game, man. There's no easy game anymore.
Right. Straight away, people are going, oh, yeah, but they're really, really rubbish. But look, as I said, let's play Arsenal, let's play Liverpool, and if we take 6 points, 4 points from that two, right? Now you're saying now we've got a different story. Suddenly you lose that two, and it's that's the sort of team we are. We're going to be the sort of team that beats everyone else, but struggles against the big teams, which I would expect. I would expect that, guys. This is a team that for 4 years have been drilled into them to sit 10 men behind the ball, to have no freedom, to have no expression in their game, to literally get the ball to Harry Kane. Now you're just seeing at the moment, a lot of people are loving life at Spurs, but Potsy, you know me, I'm not going to get carried away. It's 4 games. After 10 to 12 games, we'll see what the league table's saying. By then, you'll have an idea of who's going to be in the bottom half, who's going to be in the top. We'll see how many points clear Man City are after 12 games, see how quickly they're going to win the league this year. And look, if we got 5th, I'd be over the moon. We got 5th, over the moon. 4th, I'm giving Ange Postecoglou the manager of the season trophy now if he got 4th. But listen, I'm trying to keep it real. I'm trying to keep the feet on the ground. It's just been a good start. And after the 4 years we've had, I'm not going to apologise for enjoying it. I'm not going to.
You know what, Can I ask you about the 2 games that are coming up? So is it you say Arsenal and Liverpool?
Yeah, we got Sheffield United first at home.
Right, and then Arsenal and Liverpool.
And yeah. So that should be after Sheffield United, hopefully 13 points from 15 points available. Which would
be a great start. So them 2 games are really, really interesting because both of them 2 teams you think are going to attack you. And obviously, this new manager's come in. He's playing football the right way. Obviously, you're enjoying the style of football. However, the games that you've played, while I accept they weren't easy, you've obviously been the team there that's gone there to say, we're Tottenham, we've got to win this game. In them 2, you probably will go into both of them games not as the favourites. Liverpool and Arsenal, I'd imagine, are going to the favourites. So it's going to be interesting to see how you defend against an Arsenal side that have obviously got Martinelli with pace, Saka, and obviously Liverpool with their endless talent up front. They're the 2. I think you're spot on. I think them 2 games, if you get 4 points from them 2 games and you avoid defeat in both of them, which is still a huge task, and I don't expect them to do just because of how huge it is, then I think, fucking hell, I think that's going to be like a wake-up call to the rest of the league.
Well, look, that's the key thing, right? In the 4 games we've played so far, apart from the first half an hour against Man United, where they were very much on the front foot, we have had all the ball. And that is how Ange Postecoglou wants to play. Now, that's great when you're playing those teams. Let's see what it's going to be like when we're camped in other teams' half against top players that are breaking on us, like Saka, like Martinelli, like whichever one of Liverpool's forwards, Salah, Diaz, Nunez, whoever. That's the thing. Also, what I think it will do, though, is because those teams do open up, I think we'll get a bit of joy going the other way in the football that we play. And that's where I want to see, right, how good are we offensively? Yeah, how good are we, obviously defensively, but offensively, how good are we? Last year, we went to Arsenal, and then Arsenal came to us. And to be honest, it was embarrassing. Like, it wasn't just that we lost the games, which is obviously annoying enough as it is, but it's that we weren't in the games. It's that we sat 10 men behind the ball and tried to just contain Arsenal on both occasions when they were much better than us. So, listen, I think it's a good... take this as it's intended. I think it's the best time to be playing Arsenal, if I'm brutally honest, at the beginning of the season, before anybody's really had a chance to get into too much of a groove. I don't think Arsenal are playing this great football that worries me, but at the same time, they've got top players that worry me, if that makes sense. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I can't imagine either team are going to sit back and let this be a 0-0. And hopefully we see a classic. Liverpool, I don't know, Salah and Diaz and those guys on the break, our fullbacks literally play like wingers now. So it's going to be interesting. But look, I'm just happy. I've not liked anything under Conte for however long he was here. Didn't want him in the first place. Didn't want him towards the end. Worst thing that ever happened to my football club.
Wow. There we go. Big. Listen, LB, I've got to say, you as a City fan right now are sitting chilling. You've had an unbelievable start. I expected you to, if I'm honest. I didn't expect you to drop points. You haven't done so far. Where's your head at right now in terms of everyone else? Because I know you've mentioned before you thought Liverpool would be right up there. you fancied Arsenal to be in and around it. We didn't think we'd be as strong as last year. You mentioned Tottenham, that they could be in and around Champions League. Where are you at, man?
Well, title race, I think Liverpool and Arsenal will be up there with us, but I think in the end, City, I think will win the league comfortably. I just think we're just clear of everyone else. I don't think Arsenal have done the right business to strengthen correctly, and nor do I think that Liverpool have. I think that they've really sort of missed out on not getting a proper defensive midfielder, and I think that will cost them. I think that will cost them as the season goes on. Maybe prove wrong. Maybe their attack is so good. Maybe they'll get them out of bad situations, and I just don't see it over the course of a 38-game season. I don't see it. So, unfortunately for the league, I just don't think Liverpool or Arsenal have done enough in the transfer window, or if they have done enough, they spent it wrongly, and we'll end up winning it at a canter, to be honest with you. That's my honest opinion. I look at Arsenal and I go, have Arsenal got better from last year? And I can't confidently say yes, they have. And I don't think any Arsenal fan can confidently sit there and say, yes, we have got better. Could you explain to me where you've got better? I've not seen it so far. I know standard shit, caveat, 4 games. But off the 4 games that I've seen, I don't see it. I think Xhaka is going to be a big miss. I think that he brought something to that team. He was almost like I don't know whether to call it glue, but like a little bit of a transitional player. I thought he was absolutely excellent last year. And I know people like to blame him for what he did at Liverpool or whatever. I think that's a load of bullshit, to be honest with you. But he was a great player. And I think that he's going to be severely missed by Arsenal. And yeah, I just think Havertz, what are you doing signing him? You've still not got cover for Saka. And I just don't think Arsenal have done the right business. I just don't.
It's interesting because we didn't speak about Arsenal much last night because Lawless just kept wanting to talk about West Ham as usual. But I mean, let's be real. Mike, I kind of agree with what LB's saying there, if I'm honest. I said to you that I didn't think we strengthened enough in the right areas to go for a title. If we were trying to get into the top 4, I think we've got enough for that. But for me, I don't know that we've got enough from last season to say, right, I tell you what, yeah, we were a bit short last season, but no one expected us to be in a title race. Boom, we've gone out and done the business. Now we're ready. I kind of agree with LB there. So I wanted to get your thoughts, man, because we spoke a little bit earlier on Hybrid Squad and we spoke a little bit about some of the positives. Where do you have concerns still with this Arsenal side?
My concerns with this Arsenal side are these injuries that we keep getting, because I do think that we've improved. I'm not necessarily just speaking about player for player. I'm not claiming that Havertz is going to propel us forward from what Xhaka did last season. That's not my point of reference. Signing Timber was huge. Didn't know his knee was going to go for a year in the very first match, but we're missing out on him. I think it's going to depend a lot. If we had a healthy Gabby Jesus last year and a healthy William Saliba last year, we may just damn well have won the league against or been a lot closer. I mean, we finished 2 points behind at the end. You could call it 5 because that final day, City losing, more than likely wouldn't have happened in a tight race. But no one expected us to be there last season, but it wasn't smoke and mirrors. It wasn't a team that was. I mean, this wasn't Leicester of 2016. This was an Arsenal team that was just flat out better than most people thought that they were. We've retained the majority of that quality with the exception of Xhaka. We've added Declan Rice. We've added Jurriën Timber. We hopefully will have a healthy and strong Gabby Jesus, who we're seeing flashes of his old self again. And it's really just going to depend on that. And the one other thing we've gained is another year of experience and mentality on this club. We were talking a little bit earlier about how, our issue last year wasn't quality. It was being able to continue to stay at the same quality over a big boy season of 9 months and 50 games, 55 games. And ultimately, the squad depth, the specific injuries we had, the lack of experience, both from the coach and from the players, to know exactly how to manage your minutes, manage your mentality in January, February, March, so that when April and May come around, you're not just completely falling apart as we did. And those were hard lessons to learn last year. But as we've seen in sports before, sometimes when teams are on the rise, they almost get there. They almost get there. They fall at the final hurdle, and then they learn how to not fall at the final hurdle. So I do think that we've improved. That's not to say we'll go ahead and win the league, because we've already been dealt some hard blows with Timber, and we've had Gabriel Jesus miss some games. We've now had Thomas Partey, who's going to be out for anywhere from a month to 2 or 3 months. We don't know that. We've got the AFCON coming up. So there's challenges, but I don't think that we've not done enough to compete for the title. I think we just might need a few more things to go our way with regards to injuries or lack thereof, to show that we have learned from the lessons from last season. That's my opinion.
I mean, Sava, we spoke on Monday about it, and you made it quite clear. You thought we were much worse than last season from what you've seen, and you don't think we're strong enough, etc. And I remember speaking to you at the end of last season, and you said, "I never thought Arsenal bottled it. I just never thought you were good enough to win it anyway." I know you're kind of on the same page now in terms of what LB's saying. You think Manchester City will comfortably win the league. I mean, if Arsenal were to have any chance of this, what needs to happen for you? Or is there zero chance, do you think?
I'm going to give it 0. Listen, LB and I don't agree on everything. But when we agree, I think we really agree. I don't think you've done anything in this transfer window that suggests you want to win a title. I don't think you've done anything in this window to suggest that you want to chase City. And I think that for 200 and someone will tell me the figure, 210, 235 million pounds.
Oh, sorry, it is 210 because the 30 hasn't gone off on Raya yet. Yeah.
Look, let me caveat this before I get called a salty Spurs fan. Dan, we've had this chat for about 18 months now, right? As I said to you last year, when everyone was saying, Arsenal winning the league, I turned around and I said, listen, the season's not over after 20 games when everyone's celebrating. Let's be brutally honest about this. City come into their own in January. You can't write them off. They're the only team in the league that can turn around and go, right, let's click and let's not lose a game for 20, 25 games, right? That's what City do. So for me, I never thought Arsenal were going to win it because I just didn't think you were good enough. And that's not me being horrible. I just looked at City squad. I looked at yours. I looked at their manager. I looked at yours. I looked at their experience and know-how and looked at yours. And it felt obvious. I look at it and think for 210 million, I then look at your lineup and I go, like what LB was saying, what have you done? Like, I'm not being horrible. Like, Rice for Xhaka, cool. Rice is a very good player. I'm not saying that's not an upgrade, but cool. You've taken out a player who had a good year last year and put in Rice. What else have you done that changes anything to make you think you're going to be closer to Man City, who, let's be fair, didn't start well last year? And again, I've got to say this because Arsenal fans think I'm being salty. I'm not. I don't know what you think you've done. You've added a sub goalkeeper. Cool. You've added Havertz, which is a massive waste of £65 million, which could have gone on, let's be fair, a centre forward that I think you really, really need. You've got no competition for Saka, and Arsenal fans keep complaining that he has to play every minute of every game, right? I don't know what you've added. Timber, good player. That is the one where I would say that's unfortunate. Other than that, for 210 million, are you better than last season?
Can I clarify one thing, Don?
Sure.
First of all, the last time and the first time I did this show was right after the middle of February last year. It was directly after the Arsenal Man City game, the 3-1. And Lawless was hosting that night, so it was a unique experience, I have to say. Thanks, Dan, for bailing on me on that one. But he asked at that moment. I think we were probably up by 2 points or something, or maybe we had just gone behind them and then we went back ahead after the Aston Villa game the following weekend. But it was a midweek game, and he asked everybody, who's winning the league, and I said City, and I would say City again for this year. I'm not claiming that I think Arsenal can win the league. I've been claiming,
I get it.
Yeah, I've been claiming since before last season that we were all playing for second place. I had no concept of the fact that you could finish within 5 points of City and that it would be us that did that. What I am saying, though, is that I do think that we've improved pending injuries.
Where? Can I ask where? Where
right
have you
here.
Improved?
Right here.
No, yeah.
Cool. See, then, I don't buy into the narrative.
Mike, you can say that to City, right? Yeah. If you've added that, what what about Foden? What about Grealish? What about Ake and Stones? Haven't they all added up there as well?
Well, absolutely. But you also have.
So how have you closed the gap?
You have some
also,
teams
Mike, you were 2-1 up against Fulham against 10 men the other day.
Yeah.
So where's the mentality there? Where's the improvement?
We were 2-1 down for a minute against United the other day and ended up winning 3-1. I mean, Fulham's a good example of how we're not completely over the hump yet. But I'm my only point is football's not won on paper with stats, with transfer fees, with quality. And I know you're not just pointing to what was spent, but you are mentioning a 210 million pound haul, half of which was on one player, the other, another third of which was on a player who we won't have for the majority of this season, unfortunately. But this team gains more experiences. This is a team that relies a lot, maybe a little bit more than Man City, who's grizzled and veteran. They've been doing this for years, and it's just a matter of staying up for the competition, which I think Pep Guardiola is a massive facilitator of. This is a team that's learning how to win. It sucks to say that because you want to be a winner, but this is a team that's learning how to win.
Can I ask them what evidence? Because when you needed to learn how to win at the back end of last season, any important game you lost. So what evidence is there that you're learning how to win? I just don't see. Listen, I'm not just purely going on the money. What I'm saying is, if you're going to spend £210 million after finishing second in the table, I would expect, and again, it's really difficult for me to have this conversation because people who don't know me think I'm just a Spurs fan who hates Arsenal. And Dan and I think LB would know that I'm not that guy, right?
In 30 minutes, I could tell the difference between you and your typical Spurs.
Okay, so all I'm saying is, for the money that's been spent, listen, Man City are the flag bearers, right? Man City are the team that everyone else has to look at and go, how do we catch them? And all I'm asking is, from Arsenal point of view, yeah, you can point to that and the mentality, but the mentality is fine. But you're now in the Champions League, and I thought last year you couldn't cope with the Europa League and the Premier League. Now you're going to have the Champions League and the Premier League. What is there that's changed? What have you added? Like, who are you bringing off the bench this season that you weren't bringing off the bench last season to change games? I can't see anything different. I don't know if I'm being stupid.
Apparently Reece Nelson and Fabio Vieira, but not Trossard anymore. But look,
that's what I mean, Mike.
It's City's league. No one else is winning this league. The question is, are you competing? Are you going for it, even if it's not specifically attainable? And there is not evidence yet that we have turned some corner mentally. I'm not claiming that hey, here's what you can point to that shows that we're not going to make the same mistakes. What I am saying is we're gathering experiences. We are experiencing failure, which often we have experienced at the tail end of last season, failure, which at the end of the day gets you to a place where you understand what's required to change to win. So I believe that we are, as a team, getting stronger mentally, getting a little bit more resilient. We've added some massive pieces to that. I don't think you can underestimate how important Declan Rice and his leadership is going to be to this club.
Sure, but what's he going to add different? Again, listen, devil's advocate. I like Declan Rice, by the way. I think Declan Rice is a really good player. But Xhaka had a really good season last year. Yeah. Scored loads of goals, was a real leader on the pitch. I assume that Declan Rice will do the same thing. So again, it's like for like. What I'm just sorry. I'm just struggling to understand what Arsenal have done. Like other teams, I look at and I go,
I think you're right. I think what you're saying, Sava, is fair, right? Because for me, you can argue whether Arsenal's first 11 is stronger now. I think we need to see more of Declan Rice in this position because he's not really played the Xhaka role, to be fair. We haven't even had our best 11 fit yet, right? So for me, I think there's that question mark. Other than that, I'm with you, bro, because we've got a goalkeeper who's better than Matt Turner. I think that's fair. But other than that, is Havertz really much different to Fabio Vieira and Smith Rowe? Not from what I can see. Certainly not from what I can see. Some would say that the other two deserve to be playing ahead of him at the moment because it's not really happening for Havertz right now. I still worry about, like you said earlier, Sava made a really good point about we can't get Maddison, Romero, Van der Ven, and you mentioned someone else, I think it was Basuma, injured. We're the same. We are the same in those positions. We cannot get injury to Saliba. We cannot get an injury to Saka. We cannot get an injury to Rice because there's no other box-to-box midfielder.
I don't even want to hear that stuff.
I know. And then
how long party up for? Dan, how long?
6 weeks. 6 weeks without Partey.
Okay, so I know obviously I got a week or 2 weeks of international football, but when he comes, when the international break ends, the team that you will be putting out is worse than the team that you had last year, because Rice will be playing in the 6 and Havertz will be playing where Xhaka was, and Havertz, in my opinion, is a downgrade on Xhaka.
Point.
So
this is a great point, you know, and this is
you'll have a worse team than last year.
This is where Arteta decides: does he go with Havertz or does he play Jorginho and Rice there? Does he play Smith Rowe there, Vieira there, whatever it be?
No, Danny will definitely play Havertz because he'll do what
I agree.
with Anthony.
No, I agree.
Because this is the problem, and this is kind of why, as a manager, you don't really want to be signing the players anymore, because you make a rod for your own back, just like Ten Hag's done at Anthony. And Sancho's probably right; he probably does have his favourites. Why? Because he spent 80 million on him. He can't drop him. Otherwise, everyone will know he's made a huge mistake, even though we already know that. And this is why I've said previously on this show that I think one of Arteta's downfalls could be the signing of Havertz, because at the end of the year, I don't think anyone expects Havertz to work, right? So let's just go off that he doesn't work. At the end of the year, all Arsenal fans, unless you're tapped, are going to be sitting there going, well, why on earth did you spend £65 million on Havertz? And that question will be directed solely at the manager. And that's why I think it's going to be one of his downfalls. I don't know why he done it.
LB, that's why I've said through this whole thing, when I look at Arsenal, right, I said this to Dan last year, I think Arsenal had a really good team. I'm not going to sit here as a Spurs fan and go, oh, they're crap. They're a really good team. Even now, they're a really good team. But you don't need a good team to win a league. You don't need a good team to close the gap. You need a good squad. And I think that when you're going for titles, you have to have difference makers. Now, when I look at that Man City squad, they've got difference makers all over the park, and they have done for 7 years. When I look at Arsenal, have they got the difference makers? Couple. Have they got the difference maker? Have they got a Haaland? Have they got a... Now, if you're going to go and spend 210 million, for me, one of those players that is going to cost you 70, 80, 90, 100 million, that needs to be an Osimhen. That needs to be a Vlahovic. That needs to be somebody that you go, Arsenal have got a goal scorer. Arsenal are a problem, because Arsenal they can play bad now, Arsenal, but that bloke, give him one chance, he'll score a goal. Arsenal, I still don't think they've quite got that. I still think they're a really good team. I can't say that more for the Arsenal fans in the chat. They're a very, very... I feel like I have to overcompensate, Dan. Arsenal are a very, very good team. But I do feel now that I think Liverpool are in that conversation to finish above Arsenal, or I think that's going to be a really good race between Liverpool and Arsenal. And I do think Man City are just... Look, the difference is, somebody in the chat has said, you could say that for any team about like Saliba coming out and replacing them. The difference is in the main key area, which is defence for most clubs, the main key area, Man City can lose 2 centre-halves and not lose any sleep over it. Man City could lose Vardy and Diaz this weekend and still play Ake, Stones or Akanji, right? This is the difference. These guys have got that strength at the back. Yes, Rodri could drop out, but they've got players like Kovacic that could literally sit in there and do that role. Pep has bought a lot of players. He always does this wherever he goes, where they can play multiple positions. So he doesn't need a 25-man squad of brilliant players. He's got a squad, a core of 17, 18, and the players that he can bring in can all play centre mid, right side, up front, left, right, whatever it may be. The fullbacks.
Is it fair to say, Sava, that there's only Rodri and Edison that there's a huge drop-off for? Everyone else pretty much not really.
I wouldn't even add there's a huge drop-off for Edison. There's a drop-off, but Ortega's a very, very... as a City fan, I'm very comfortable with Ortega, so I would just say I think Rodri for us. And Haaland is obviously the one. I know Alvarez is great.
Yeah.
It's like we've already forgot about Kevin De Bruyne here. I mean, they've just picked up.
He's out, and it's like no one even notices. It's mad, isn't it?
Can I just give my final point on this one?
Go on,
the one thing I want Arsenal fans to understand from a City point of view, right? So try and get in sort of like my head where I'm at here, and it's the same position where I was in January. Obviously, in January when you guys was leading, and the transfer window was open, I was worried as a City fan because I was like, shit, these guys are like 6-7 points clear. It's January. They're going to go big and they're going to sign players and they're going to go and kick on and win the league, right? That's where I was at as a City fan. February the 1st, I was like, we're going to win the league. I think we'll do this because you didn't get the players that you needed. Okay, so that's where I was at as a City fan. I just like try to get you to understand. And it's the same again now in the sense that like, you've not worried me enough as a City fan, as a direct rival. And I don't know if you guys can like understand that, because I'm saying it from my point of view. But it's like Sava said, like, you spent 230 million. I would have expected you to sign a player where I'm like, shit. And Rice, as good as he is, he doesn't strengthen your team, in my opinion, enough where you're going to scare me. He might solidify you in certain games, but you needed something more at the top end, in my opinion. I'm just saying it from my point of view. And if you guys want to disregard it, it's fine. I'm just saying, for me, January, you didn't do enough to worry me. And on February the 1st, I was like, we can do it. And when the transfer window shut for this one, again, I'm sat there going, I just don't think these guys have done enough, man. And that's just my opinion, as like where I'm at and my feeling.
I agree.
I can't even say it's unfair.
Look, in terms of like this key areas of the pitch, the one I was looking at the most in this summer was the defense. I think Timber signing was very good, and I'll stick by that. Yeah. In terms of depth option, I think that was a very smart move by Arsenal. The fact that he can play in 2 defensive positions, he's very comfortable on the ball. I think that's going to be a massive miss. But I think LB makes a very good point, because when you look at Arsenal, I think Rice is a fantastic signing, and I think he'll be a long-term success at Arsenal. But it doesn't help when you lose Xhaka, who was a key player as well. You want to ideally keep the likes of Xhaka in the side and add Rice. That's when you have the depth. Whereas this year, when you look at your squad, I think you've tried to improve the squad overall, but then you've had 1 or 2 players, or you haven't done it to the same level that maybe you should have done to push on this season. And I think that's why, let's be honest, against United, Arsenal were not great. They weren't. I don't think I've watched any Arsenal game this season. I said, damn, that's the Arsenal from last season. Same. And you can blame that on Havertz, you can blame that on different factors, but I think the signings that you made, they are very good signings, but it just wasn't enough. And you still have a better squad. And this is why, when we talk about depth, we talk about compare Arsenal to Man City. But even if you compare Arsenal to United, you can see the importance of depth to win and to be challengers in the league. Because look at Arsenal's bench, for example, against United. You had Jesus, you had Trossard, Jorginho, Reece Nelson, Smith Rowe. When you look at United's bench, they had Højlund, but then apart from that, Garnacho, Johnny Evans, who came off the bench, Maguire. Benches matter. It might not matter to the extent of smaller clubs, but for teams like Arsenal, as you can see from City, there's not much of a drop-off. You need to have a full squad. And I just feel like, yes, you do have a better bench than the likes of United and maybe other clubs like around you, maybe Tottenham's, etc. But then again, I don't think you have a better squad to compete as with City. And I think that's what it comes down to. Is literally that. You have made some very good signings, but the squad is still not there to the extent that it should be.
Do you think they've done? Do you think they've done the right thing though, D? Because like, say they did what Sava did, and went and spent 150 million pound on Osimhen, but then maybe only had like 50, 60 million. So they got Timber and Osimhen. But then they don't get maybe a Rice. So they don't get Rice. They don't get the extra goalkeeper. Like, even though they would have got less players, if they would have got that big hitter up top, would that have been I don't know, maybe this is one for the Arsenal guys. I don't know. Would that have been a better transfer window?
Let me throw that back at you then, LB. Let me throw that back at you. So right now, we do that. Our midfield is Jorginho, Havertz and Ødegaard. We've got Osimhen up front. Is that better than the midfield that we have right now? So you're either basically going to strengthen up top or strengthen in midfield. We've gone for midfield.
Well, you wouldn't even have Havertz either, by the way.
Why not both? Damn, why not both?
Exactly. I was sorry, I wouldn't have had Havertz. Yeah, but that wasn't the question, Sava. That wasn't the question.
No. I understand that, but the thing is, when you've spent 210 million, I think everyone right now would be going, "Wow, Arsenal are a proper threat." If you had got a top centre forward, and I know it's easier said than done because there's not a million of them out there, but it's sort of like it's not rocket science for everyone to see what Arsenal needed, and I don't think that you did it, and I think you'll be right up there. I think you'll be second or third, but when push comes to shove, I think it will be the Arsenal fans at the end of the season going, "Yeah, we didn't do enough," and that's fine because City are great. There's no problem coming second to them. But then next summer, what do you do? Next summer, do you do the same thing again where you just go, "Oh, okay, we've made a few." At some point, you've got to go out and find that big hitter. And Declan Rice I think D is spot on. He'll be a great player for you for years to come. No one's doubting Declan Rice. But is he enough of a game changer in that position that tilts it from nearly rans to title winners. I don't think it was. And I think for 110 million, 105 million, you could have still got him a bought somewhere else, or you could have got another midfielder at half that price, then still had money to buy a centre forward. I'm just not sure what you were going for this summer. That's only me. I just don't quite understand your window.
I want. Go on.
Another thing with Rice as well. I just personally feel like we haven't even seen the best of him for Arsenal yet, even though I think he's had a very good start to the season, because he's been talking about it as well. He's been talking about playing number 8, potentially, practicing and training. And I think he's got the qualities to play that role as well. So right now we're seeing one side of Rice, but once Arteta feels comfortable enough to play him as an 8, then I think we're going to even see a better side of Rice in terms of getting more production with goals and assists, because I think he's got it in him. But right now it's a bit confusing because of Havertz fitting in there. When it comes down to one, I don't want to blame on Havertz alone, because I think it is a bit harsh. But then again, you have to look at this side and you have to look at what's different from last season, this season. Xhaka, you played a massive role last season. He's out of it. Havertz is in it. And we look at Havertz and what he contributes, I don't think he just contributes enough to win a title. I don't think he's elevated. I don't think he's doing anything better than Xhaka. So I think that's the main difference from last season. With your attackers, yes, you could have brought in another striker. But last season, Arsenal were scoring goals. You know, one thing that I'll have to say that I haven't said before, you don't need to watch out for Saka. I think he's a phenomenal player, but the amount of games he's playing and without any depth options down the right-hand side, I think in the long run, you guys will end up hurting him. He's a very good player, but you even saw it against United on the weekend where, yes, everyone can have an off day, but as I'm seeing all these stats about him playing consecutive games this much, and I get it, there's sports science now. I guess they wouldn't, push him if he was on a verge of injury. But I feel like you're overusing him as well. He's a very good player, but maybe that's in attack. Maybe, look, striker would have been fantastic, but even another option behind Saka, that would have been good as well, because I feel like he's going to need rest. You can't use him for every single game. It's just too much.
We are all worried about that. We are all worried 100%. About Saka. There are some options there, though, and I think as this season goes by, you can't help but see those start to get more playing time. Reece Nelson's one of them, and I'm not claiming. That's a drop off. I'm not claiming we're going to win the league because of Reece Nelson, but we've seen him. We know that some of our players can play multiple positions. Trossard. Vieira can play out there. I mean, I think you'll see a little bit more experimentation with. I've just pissed LB off beyond belief, haven't I? Guys, we are going to win the league. I was just kidding. No, when you talk about the Osherman thing, I mean, you made a good point. D, is it?
Yeah.
We scored 88 goals last year with quote unquote no real striker. Again, 94 goals from Man City with the best striker in the world having his best season ever. When Aubameyang left Arsenal, we started scoring goals from different places. We started becoming more well-rounded. Saka started finishing goals. ESR started finishing goals. That's a separate conversation. Odegaard scoring now. Vieira is getting the goal every once in a while. And Martinelli. I mean, the goals are not our issue. And I don't know that signing a striker. Now, would I like to have the same squad and just add Osherman in as an additional option? Sure, but they were looking for 150, 175 million pounds for him this summer. I mean, it was something absolutely absurd, and I don't think you get that deal done for the 70 or 80 that a lot of people were talking about at the beginning of the window. But
Mike, can I ask you a question about that? Yeah. See, because I don't think it's two different discussions. Can Arsenal score goals? Yes. But we're talking about the elite levels of football here. In the elite games, the difference is Erling Haaland's going to keep scoring goals. In the big moments, Erling Haaland is ruthless. Goal, 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 goal. In the big moments, have Arsenal got a player that is going to just bang in goals for fun? It's all well and good having the goals from everywhere. That's no problem. But the big clubs that win the leagues, that win the Champions Leagues, that win trophies, they've more often than not got that one guy that you could be playing terribly and he will dig you out. I watched their game, Man City game back against Fulham. They weren't great. And within seconds, boom, boom, boom. Haaland was like, well done. I don't think Arsenal have that. You've got lovely football. You've got players that will chip in with 14, 15. But like in the games when Man City battered you, when Man City battled Real Madrid, in both games, Erling Haaland turned up and was like, "Pow, I'm the man. I'm the big gun here. I'm the man." I don't think you've got that. And that's the difference between scoring a lot of goals and in the big moments, who's your player? Who's your player in those massive moments?
I think we're about to see who it is, and we need to keep him healthy, like we were just talking about. And he's not a number 9; he's a winger. But I mean it's a good point. I take your point. Well, I understand what you're talking about, but again, I'm very concerned about balance. I'm concerned about the right people being in the club, and I know that the club are concerned about that as well. So, I just see a lot. I see a lot of these kind of fantasy or just. There's a lot of just plug this person in and he wins you a league or he gains you 6 points in the table. And I just don't feel that football always works.
Osman was just, by the way, that was just a pie in the sky.
Well,
I truly believe if you had even a Vlahovic, I think if you had a focal point that you can put the ball into that scores goals. Yeah, this is the thing. When we're talking about, like, I like Saka, he's a good player, but when we're talking about clutch moments, if that's how people speak, right? If we're talking about those big clutch moments, I'm not talking about the moments where you whip in a lovely 20-yarder. Like, Saka's brilliant at cutting in and whipping them in. I'm talking about those moments where you get one snapshot in the box. I want Erling Haaland. I want Harry Kane. I want these people that, for fun, put the biscuit in the basket. At the moment, I think that's the difference between you and City, and that's all I was saying. For the money you spent, I would have expected to see a game changer. And
Agreed. And there's just not a lot of those guys out there on the market.
Yeah,
sure.
And it's
you've got to find a way. You've got to find. Listen,
or you got to make those guys, and that's what Arsenal have always been about trying to do. And it doesn't fix the issue overnight, but we might be talking differently a year or two from now and saying we have 2 of those guys.
Sure.
I think as well, when you look at what Sav was saying there in terms of who's Arsenal's guy that they rely upon, I think it's fair to say Arsenal haven't really had massive moments in the last few years. To be honest, there's been no Champions League final. There's been no Champions League football, let alone Champions League finals. There's been no FA Cup finals of the last couple because we've gone for the leagues or we've gone for other competitions. So this, for me, is the year that we find out. Sav's question: who's the guy at Arsenal right now?
I was talking about, like, when I watched you guys playing against Southampton I think it was the first game that was of that 3 or 4 bad spell, right? Yeah. And I know that sounds mad. It was literally like 3 poor games, but that was the difference, wasn't it, between blowing a 9-point lead?
Liverpool, Southampton, West Ham.
But I think that was a defensive Sava.
Yeah, but D, you can say that for how many chances I see Arsenal having. The Arsenal create for fun. Like, Arsenal are over teams all the time. And it almost reminded me a little bit of years ago when it was like, Jesus, Arsenal are really good to watch, but God, they don't half try and walk the ball into the net. At some point, you need someone to pull the trigger. And in those games, D, you can say it was the defense. In those games, if you've got an Erling Haaland, I know that's easier said than done. If you've got a Kane, you've got a Haaland, you've got this guy up front. They're not in the game. They're not in the game to worry about it because you've scored a couple of goals and the game's out of sight.
Name a third one that's actively. I think
there's a few goal scorers out there, man. There are goal scorers. You've got to find them.
Okay. I mean, you could name a couple, but I mean, she's a winger too.
Tony. I mean, Tony. I think Tony would be great for Arsenal because of what he's done at Brentford, and he's got a Premier League experience. It's hard. Strikers come at premium, but I think I get what you're saying because LB could probably back me up here with Jesus. When Jesus first joined Arsenal, I thought it was an upgrade in terms of what he can offer with his dribbling, with his movement. Pressing. I think that side of his game was perfect. But you have to remember, when City didn't have a striker, he wasn't still always on the pitch, and there's a reason for that. Pep didn't always play him week in, week out because he's never that goal scorer. Look, he's had the likes of Kevin De Bruyne. He's had all the creative players behind him, but he's never been that type of player. And I think that was a natural improvement for Arsenal at that time with Jesus. But naturally, you should be looking to improve that in the long run. I think this season, more than anything, I think it's still going to be, the question is, with that Timber injury, what do you do? What's your cover? I guess you got Kirill there, but then again, what game was it that he played at left back and he wasn't bombing down? He was pretty much stuck at left back, and it was a home game. Potts, what was it?
You're talking about the Fulham game where
He's
to
an
be honest
option,
with
but
you,
he's not a proper option. You get it. So you still got a defense problem there. We got Rob Holding now, who's going to sit on our bench rather than your bench. But look, that's the difference. Like that's the difference from last season. Because I think you 100% agree. They still need that elite striker. I think that's still missing at Arsenal. But in the short term, they're still that defense.
This is my point. I don't. By the way, I don't think you just chuck in an Osman and they win the league. I think that there's multiple places where Arsenal need to strengthen.
Positions.
And when I look at it, a backup goalkeeper when your first choice goalkeeper is really good anyway, fine, but only one of them can play, right? And you don't rotate goalkeepers in the Premier League. Timber was a good player. I don't know if he would have started or not, but that's not my problem. Havertz, Rice in for Xhaka. So again, this is what I mean, D. There were lots of. I feel like they've changed a couple in the 11, but for me, you're still Saliba gets injured. Who's your centre half? Who's playing at centre half if Saliba gets injured?
And this is the problem. I spoke to judges about this on this channel. I said, look, man, let me give you a scenario. Tomiyasu goes to the Asian Cup in January and Saliba gets injured. What's our back line? We're happy to play Kiwior over at right centre back, and we got Brentford in the Carabao Cup, and he said, we'll probably just play our backup, like back four. We can't. We ain't got a backup back four. We haven't got one. We Ben White is our first choice right back, right? Tomiyasu is the backup, but Tomiyasu is also the backup left back as well. So we've got Zinchenko because we sold Tierney, which I'm really cut up about, as everyone knows. We've got Saliba and Gabriel. We've got Kiwior as the backup to Gabriel. But then Ben White is the backup to Saliba, who's our first choice right back. So we're in trouble again, It's just like, why have we got rid of Tierney? Why are we doing this? Timber's injured. We can't help that.
You have to watch out the season pots because there's another like West Ham. They're up there as well. So there's more teams that's getting involved in a title battle this season, according to others after 4 games. I don't know what they smoke, but every night they reiterate that West Ham are there. But yeah, you have to watch out. You have to watch out because they've got Antonio up front. You have to balance things
and they've got Antonio up front
and Ketia. You have to watch out, innit? But yeah, it's going to be hard this season. It was always going to be hard going into it because I always believed that other teams were going to bounce back. There was that thing last season where Chelsea, well, with Chelsea, I don't think they're involved in the title race, but Liverpool was the major thing. I think Liverpool this year will become more of a force. But then again, it's City's title. It is City's title. I see them winning. But Arsenal can't drop off because if you drop off, I know what's going to happen at the end of the season. People are going to question Arteta. So for Arteta's sake, you still have to be up there and you have to lose at margin. You can't come, let's say, April, May, and we know that you're out of the title race. Like, you have to be as good as last season. I don't know how. I haven't seen it so far, but maybe if Havertz kicks into form and things start working out with Arteta's tactics with him, maybe he could be a difference maker. But these are ifs and buts that realistically we don't really see it happening. I think this season more than last season, it's still early days. It's only 4 games. I'm not seeing the same Arsenal. I'm not seeing the same Arsenal that I saw last season. You're still getting a result, which is important. But in terms of performance, there's something missing there.
No club has the squad to compete with City over 38 games. I mean, and that's the whole point of it, is that no club has that squad. That squad has been built up over 10 seasons, and I won't discuss my personal views about how that happened. But that club is solid through 22 players right now. The core, like you said, 17, 18 flexible players, but they have a player that can come in for a second for a first team player, and the level doesn't go down by very much.
Well, I think it's 22 players, though, is it, Mike? Is it 22? I'm not sure they've got 22 to 25. I feel like they've got 16, 17.
I'm basically saying they've got 2 teams of 11 that they can play comfortably and win almost every single game. Whether it's 18 or 22, I mean, I'm not that.
But Mike, for me, what you need to be doing then is holding these people who are signing players like Havertz responsible for wasting £65 million. Because what you've just said there,
I will when that becomes apparent. And absolutely a foregone.
It probably will. No, I accept that. But if at the end of the year, we Havertz does not impress, which I don't think he will, right? Something has to happen, because what you've just said is you can't compete with City because of the squad that we've got. But if you waste £65 million on Havertz when that could have gone into someone who properly improved your team,
Yeah, man.
If
That's
Havertz ends
got
up
to be responsible for that.
if Havertz ends up being Pepe Part 2, or Jadon Sancho, or any of those kinds of purchases, 100% you hold somebody responsible for that. You also hold somebody responsible when you sign Martin Odegaard for 32 million pounds and those sort of things. So I mean, you're going to have hits and misses. That's a big miss if in fact Havertz ends up being.
But isn't it worrying, Mike?
I think it's far too early to assume that that's going to be the case. The trend is not good.
I mean, I don't think it is, Mike. I feel like everyone can pretty much see that this guy is not the one. But isn't the
let's
worry?
Talk again in a few months about that. You might be right.
Yeah, I'll fancy my chances on this one. When you look at some of the other signings that clubs that are not as good as Arsenal have made for cheaper, that would have really strengthened you, like Mohamed Kudus going to West Ham for 45
Diaby's the one
million.
that got away for us.
Diaby, I wanted Diaby
on the
I
right
wanted
wing.
Madison. I wanted Madison and Diaby. They were the two.
That's where I was going with this. James Madison, Diaby, Mohamed Kudus. These players that you're looking at and thinking, how have these other clubs gone and got them to strengthen? You guys are meant to be in a title race and go and spend 65 million on Havertz. That for me is just criminal. But then to say, well, City have got all of these players. Yeah, because City don't waste 65 million pounds on players like Kai Havertz. Do you know what I mean? Like City will go and spend 65 million on a player that Pep will mold into whatever he really needs.
City's had some misses on players before. I mean, they've missed on some expensive players before. Like Mangala.
Okay, so we want to go back to like 7 or 8 years.
I'd like to go back to when they were building the squad that they have now, when they began to build the squad that they have now, because we're still in building the squad that we're going to have for the next 5, 6, 7 years to try to compete for the title every year. I mean, we're because of last season, everyone thinks that we are there and we've arrived and that we're doing things that should win you the title this season. This is the season that well, I'm saying that we should be there based on our process, which Dan loves.
The thing is,
it's going to take years and close to £1 billion to build the type of squad to compete with Man City. And
I disagree. I don't think it needs £1 billion. I really don't. I think this is the difference between Pep Guardiola being this amazing coach that he is and being able to take players, mold them and scope them. And then you've got your manager that wants to spend 65 million of your transfer budget on Kai Havertz. Now, I'm not blaming Kai Havertz for everything. I think I've seen all these Arsenal, AFTV and all these people, oh my God, everything is Havertz. You can't blame everything on Kai Havertz. Listen, that's not his fault. The manager picks him. The manager doesn't have to play him. Yeah. But all the players that are out there, you think for 65 million with proper scouting, you could have bought Alexis McAllister and Gravenberch. I'm not saying you want both. I'm just saying, for example, 2 players that would have fit in for 65 million. That for me is really, really poor when you finish second in the league and you go, that's who we need. That's the player we need. That's the game changer we need. Kai Havertz. Must be massively underwhelming as a fan base, no?
Well,
hugely underwhelming.
At this point, it's something where I think we are trusting, not all of us, clearly, but for the most part, the players, for the most part, not all of them, for the most part, are the players that Arteta has selected. Urian Timber, Ben White. Was that Arteta or was that right before him? Ben White, Tomiyasu. For the most part, he's hit on players that are fitting our system and making us better. Willian was not one of those players, and Havertz may, ironically enough, the two of them have this one little thing in common. Havertz may also not be one of those players, but I have no reason at this point to assume that he's not going to unlock Kai Havertz. We know what Kai Havertz is capable of. We know what he's also been stuck doing for the last few years, and he's had a rough start here. So after 4 games, I'm just not ready to have this conversation as though it's completed. I would be very happy to come back.
I rate that. But it's just a strange. And what you said there is,
it's a weird one, and I hated that we gave that money.
It's weird.
You
weren't in a position to gamble.
I'm into the finances of the game, and I hated that we gave Chelsea that kind of a fee prior to July 1st. I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to football finances and amortization and FFP and all that. Dan can tell you, I study that stuff. I hated that we did that transfer when we did it for how much we did it. If we had waited a week or two, paid 10 million less, I would have been much happier. But at this point, look, I'm not blindly walking off the cliff like a lemming, but I do kind of trust Arteta's talent identification. And if he's willing to die on this hill, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Can I ask you a question then? So if I look at your last 4 or 5 signings, let's look at all your signings this summer, and then I'll look at Jorginho, I'll look at Trossard. You're talking about his ID talent, right? He's brought in Jorginho, who's not going to get in your team, right? He's brought in Trossard, who never, ever seems to play, which is strange for me. He's playing Havertz, and you've got Trossard. It's just strange to me. Then you look at, you've bought a sub-goalkeeper, cool. You've brought in Timber. Was he going to play? Was he not? I don't know. I don't know, man. You've brought in Havertz. I feel like when you're saying his ID talent, I'm literally looking at the last 5, 6, 7 signings and saying, how many of them have gone in and you've gone, that's a top signing?
Jorginho wasn't meant to be a top talent signing to upgrade on the first 11. He was meant to build up the squad. Havertz, we've talked about. Timber, not a person on this podcast has said that was a bad signing. No person in the world has said that that's a bad signing. And, you know, and yeah, he would be starting, and he would be giving us more flexibility for when Saliba goes out.
Where would he be playing? Can I ask where he'd be playing?
He could be playing virtually anywhere along the back line other than left center back, I think. Okay. He's played at left back. He's played at right back. He can play right center back. He could free up Ben White to play right center back if Saliba gets hurt. I mean, again, and who else do you want to add into that? Trossard, I think, was a brilliant signing. The fact that he didn't get into the game against United may have. I mean, we don't always know exactly what's happening in training with fitness, with you know, interpersonal relationships there. But
I hear you, but that's the excuse, isn't it? For every time a player doesn't play, we talk about we don't know what's happening.
Let's give it more than one game where he doesn't play, because he was an incredibly impactful sub in the first 2 games of the season. That he got the start in the third game of the season and didn't impress.
I'm talking about you bought him in January, right?
Yeah.
And I was seeing in lots of games when you were struggling, I'm thinking, this guy hasn't thrown in Trossard again. This guy hasn't thrown, like, you're talking about Saka needing rest.
Why Trossard played a huge part, right? Right. He hit the ground running when we came in, when we were watching Mikhail Mudryk, you know, throwing his toys out.
I think you're both right. I think Trossard come in. I don't think we've seen much of him lately, and I think that's a mistake, personally. Having said that, Fabio Vieira's come on and looked very good when he's come on in the last couple of games. So, listen, I'm a big fan of Trossard. I actually think he's been very good, and I don't quite understand.
You have to find a way to get him on the pitch.
I think so. I think he will play more, man. I think everyone keeps saying we're 4 games in. We're 4 games in. I'm going to say it. We are 4 games in. We don't know. This isn't the season done. We don't know whether Havertz is going to be a flop or not. I happen to agree with Sava. I've seen 3 years of this guy, and I don't get it. And I don't get it at the moment in an Arsenal shirt. But I'm willing to give him more than 4 games in an Arsenal shirt. That's for sure.
As you should.
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, I think to close on these points, for me, it's not really the Havertz one that annoys me. It's the fact that one wasn't on top of the 2 or 3 others that we quite clearly needed. So if I said to you, Havertz has come in, that's a bit of a strange one, but at least we've got someone to cover Saka, a striker, a centre-half, and a box-to-box midfielder now.
That's fair.
Then I'll be like, that's a bit of a strange one, that Havertz. Do we really need him? But the fact that we have got him over the likes of a Saka replacement or a striker replacement, that's where I struggle. And that's where I've got a question mark.
Well, and Arteta's going to be judged for it, because he clearly thought that he was a very, very valuable player that he could make part of this team. And you know, again, I don't think anyone would argue that it's not going well.
But he was overthinking, I think. It was I get why, because he wants a versatile player with Havertz. I think, you know, technically he can play in different positions, but I genuinely believe he got him based on his ability. I think Arteta spoke about this before. It's about, you know, getting players based on their technical ability. And on paper, yes, he has done it before. But the reason why I think people are talking about Havertz like this after 4 games is not the fact that, he's had a mare in 4 games. It's the fact that we've known what to expect from this player, because he's been in the Premier League for ages. He's had some highs as well with Chelsea, you know, in the Champions League final. And he's had some lows. So when you balance out everything together, you can tell that his ceiling in the Premier League isn't that high. Look, of course, after 4 games, you can't write off a player. Let's see what Arteta is cooking. But I'll be honest. I don't think it's going to be tasty. Whatever he's cooking, because we've already had this meal before, and it's going to be the same old thing. It's going to be the same old thing.
But this is why I've been saying, I said it started with this discussion that this could be something that puts Arteta under serious pressure, because this was his signing. And if I was an Arsenal fan, and you get to the end of the season and you don't win the league, which I don't think you will, I'd be saying, why the hell do you spend this money on Havertz? Let's see what he does. Like, I rate Mike for backing him, as you should. But if this doesn't work out, questions have to be asked to Arteta of why did you buy this guy who was very poor at Chelsea and waste
But it can't be a shock, right? When it doesn't. I mean, when we're saying if it works out, what are we as football fans, as you guys as Arsenal fans? What's success for Havertz for 65 million? What's success? How will they judge that?
For me, goals and assists, there has to be into double figures for me. That's what I believe. That's what I believe.
10 goals, 10 assists. I would
10 goals, 10 assists.
That's what needs to be for me.
Not just numbers, not just numbers. He has to have an impact. He has to show that.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be like in place. Like right now, he looks out of place. Forget about goals and assists. He doesn't even look in place at his Arsenal side. He looks a bit lost. So you have to start somewhere. You have to start with him actually making an impact.
I've said now for me that there might be. I mean, I want him to come out the 11. I don't think he will, but I want him to come out the 11 and be used potentially as a different dimension type player, because when he played against City in the Community Shield, everyone was waxing lyrical about how fantastic he was. I didn't see how fantastic he was. I thought he was
fantastic. He was good. He wasn't.
He was good. Exactly that, Mike. Exactly that. So maybe that's where we need to utilize him from the bench. Maybe he comes on and gives us a different dimension up there. I don't know what that looks like, but for me, I'd try to find someone else, because right now it ain't working. But listen, we've got to move from Havertz. Before I wrap up with Mike to share some very exciting and very important news. So please make sure you stay tuned for that. D, I've got to ask you just very quickly on Palace. Roy's gonna do what he does, isn't he? With Crystal Palace.
Game out of time. I'm not this season. I already told you I'm not going to be talking. You're just going to be seeing game out of time. I've got a lot of feelings about Palace this year in terms of what the business that we've done. And we're not looking. Look, I'm not going to say, we're great. 4 games in, we're going to finish top 4 should be the aim, because I'm not deluded like others, because I don't get carried away after 4 games and act like my team was on fire in relegation battle last year and act like all of a sudden we're going to finish in the top 4. But look, based on like reality of things, this season, as I said before, going into the season, Roy's aim was a top 10. But we have to remember, right now, the game against Wolves, it was the result was 3-2, but it wasn't a 3-2. In the second half, we destroyed them, and we should have won that way more comfortably. Just we fell asleep, and that's the thing. Remember, we haven't got Elise yet. Lerma, Decore, they're still blending in, and I feel like Palace this season, we'll see after 10 games. I think that's a good barrier. Is getting slept on, I think, in terms of potential, because Zaha left, and I've already seen it. People are saying Holden will start at Palace. I'm sorry, but if you think that, then your ball knowledge is just out of place ahead of Mark Gahey and Yoki Manderson. That's not going to happen, is it? And we have got quality players. We needed to sign a striker, right? In the last game against Wolves, Mateta, 2 assists, Edouard has been decent so far this season. So if them forwards actually contribute this season and stop running around like headless chicken, which they have been doing previously, then that area of the game should be fine. But look, Elise has to come back and we'll see from there. It's still early days. Game out time, get a point against... so far, I'll give it 8 out of 10. If we got something against Arsenal, it would have been a 10 out of 10 in terms of what I was expecting. For me, next game, Villa, away from home, get 1 point and we move from there. Just be in and around that pact and don't lose games consecutively. And so far, it's been solid.
Hey, Day, I had the game on actually. I thought Palace looked pretty good, man. I thought that Mateta guy, he looked really fucking. He don't lose the ball, does he? He's a big lad, and I think that you're right. I think I have some optimism about the season, man, because
I am, but I'm not going to get carried away, LB, because
I don't get carried away. But like, what's Conference League is top 8? Could you get top 8? Get 8th?
Well, I said the aim should be top 10. Based on ever since Roy's come in, I don't know how many games we've lost. I don't know if Arsenal was the only home game that we've lost so far. Look, the aim is top 10. But I just want to be around that top 8 to top 10. I don't want the season to end come March.
You gotta finish above West Ham, bro, because you know what will happen if you don't, bro.
But then again, we finished above West Ham last season. I didn't go about it because my barrier is not finished above West Ham. They won a European trophy, which is great, but they're in their own little world. I'm not going to compete with Lawless because he thinks his club is bigger than it is. I get you won a European trophy, but your club is not a top 7 club. But then again, it's 4
champions of Europe.
Can you say that? Talking about, I mean, I've never once said, oh, Sheffield United, I hope you beat Man City, because I know that Palace will never be able to compete with City, even if we won 4 out of 4 games. But then again, there's people out there that are deluded about their clubs that don't know what it means. Whereas there's other West Ham fans like Nicky, for example, who said first mark 40 points. That should be realistic for Palace and West Ham. First of all, get 40 points, but then again, top 10 would be great for West Ham, not top 7 or 6th or 5th, because let's be honest, they lost Declan Rice, they made some very good signings, but we have to see how it works out. But for Palace, game at time, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, that's fair, man. That's fair. Listen, to close the show, I'm going to hand over to the legend that is Magic Mike, who has got a pretty important announcement, man. So over to you, man. The mic is yours, Magic Mike. There we go.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, the reason that Dan is handing it over to me is because I do a charity that's called Gooners versus Cancer. And by the way, it is in the plans in the next couple of years to make it football versus cancer. So I'll definitely be reaching out to some of you guys at some who are supporters and connected with people at other clubs. But we do a charity called Gooners versus Cancer. We raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And one of the things that we do out of a lot of different types of events and live fundraising is a podathon. Now, you think this pod has been long at 1 hour and 15 minutes. We're doing a 27-hour-long live podcast that starts on Sunday night at 6 p.m. UK time and goes until Monday night at 9 p.m. UK time. And it's not just me talking about Arsenal or me and a buddy talking about Arsenal. We have it stocked full of great guests, both Arsenal and not Arsenal. If you want to take a look, Dan's just put up the guest list if you can read it. Not because football fans can't read, but because it's really small type. Along with the prize drawings, but we got guys like Gab Marcotti and Julian Lawrence coming on. We've got let me try to focus on some of the folks that aren't so Arsenal-y that people might know. Henry Winter's going to be joining us. Ryan Rocastle, David Sun, who's a great friend of the podcast. We're going to have some commentators on. Peter Drury will be on with us. John Champion will be on with us. Kevin Campbell, of course, who's a great friend to a lot of people, and classic, amazing legend as far as I'm concerned for the Arsenal. Alan Smith. We're going to have Gunner Blog, Arsblog, Charles Watts, Jim Proudfoot, and a ton of other Arsenal guests. Warren Barton will be joining us, John Hark, Sophie Nicolau. We got about 40 different guests. We got 25 great prizes, signed kits from legends, first team signed kits, tours of the Emirates with Arsenal legends, the coins, the Zenith coins that Sophie gives away in the Highbury squad. It's a massive undertaking. I get a lot of support, a lot of help, a lot of great people doing it. Dan seems to think that Valencia is going to be a better experience than being part of the podathon this year.
I'm gutted. I have been there the last 2 years.
Yes, you've been with me, and of course you have me here to help talk to all the great people in the chat, even the ones who are in Australia and massively criticizing me and everything that they say. But yeah, this is a big endeavor for us. We've raised over $100,000 for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society in the last 5 years, and the way that you can donate, and it's open to anybody, Gooner or otherwise, obviously. The way that you can donate is go to goonersvcancer.com. You donate online. It goes directly to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and then you get raffle entries. The raffle entries depend on the size of your donation. All that's explained on the website. And the sooner you go there, the sooner you get your entry in, the more prize draws that you'll be involved in when we start the show on Sunday or Monday. And then just enjoy the show. Hope you'll tune in. You can go to goonersvcancer.com, the schedule, and the prizes are all up there. So learn more about it, and please support ours or any of the other great football related charities that are going on right now. And thanks, Dan, for putting the word out.
Man, 100%. Make sure you do me a favor, guys. Honestly, goonersversuscancer.com. Trust me, the prizes are serious prizes that you can win as well, man. Not that other people don't give out great prizes, of course they do, but having been experienced what I have in the last couple of years, Mike has done unbelievable with this, and got some really good people involved that are real good footballing men as well. So
we'll have some silverware available for anyone that might want to try it
out. You had to get that in there,
Sam. On the bottom right, you might need. You might be invested in that, but yeah. But boss, you can end the show.
Crystal Palace
so he's not going to ruin you.
Wow.
Palace fans talking to Spurs fans about trophies. This is class. What a way to win.
And I'm hearing Saba does a lot of charitable things as well. So Saba, big up to you for what, and I'll make sure to ask Dan about it because just as we get support from all the communities, I'd like to be able to provide the same.
Yeah, man, listen, what you're doing is fantastic. And I think, you don't need to say whether you're Arsenal or not. Listen, I think all these charities go way beyond what 11 men we like to run around a pitch and kick a football, right? Let's be brutally honest. So I think what you're doing is fantastic. And listen, I think it's a weekend for it. I've got mine Saturday midday to Sunday midday.
Oh, you're doing it? Oh,
yeah, doing a 24-hour. I can't compete with the Kevin Campbells. I can't compete with.
That's harder, though. I mean, it's not easy to get guests like that, but but we're always lucky to do that. But if I didn't have those kinds of guests, I don't think I could do 24, 27 hours of just like normal content. And so if that,
it's fine. Listen, I listen. What I was going to say is I'll make sure that I plug yours when I'm doing mine. I think my biggest one is a James Maddison official shirt that we're auctioning off. So that's about but
it ain't about that. It's people doing good things for people who need it and using the football community. And that's why my goal eventually, and Dan, I've been saying this since we were at the FCAs a couple years ago. I want to make this a football wide thing and incorporate other charities and just 1 + 1 + 1 can equal 8 sometimes if you do it the right way.
Yeah, Mike, listen, I'd love to after you've got this one out the way, message me. I'll happily get involved from a Spurs standpoint of view. Old sod Spurs, I'll happily get involved with us from the point of view of being a human being, right? I think there's so many people that sit and watch YouTube channels for free. I think if you're asking them all to donate a $5 or a $10 every 3 or 4 months, it's not a lot, is it? This is free. So yeah, what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, man. Big up to you.
And Potsy's donating all of his proceeds for the next 3 years to Gooners versus Cancer from his channel.
It's amazing, isn't it?
He doesn't even know that.
Great
yet.
guy.
He doesn't even know that.
I don't know that yet, but I do now.
Maybe he could donate those absolutely disgusting shirts on his wall. Maybe they could go for a prize or something.
Speaking of disgusting shirts, he's gonna when Dan's around, there ends up getting wine getting spilled on shirts. He's been around. He's been around 2 shirts that have been completely besodden with red wine over the past year or so.
I will say that had nothing to do with myself, though.
But other than that,
you were my right, 100%, it did have something to do with. But we won't go into those stories. Listen, in all seriousness, Mike, amazing, and you are very humble about how hard you do work on these, with this charity. I think it's been fantastic, and the shows are always fantastic, man. Like honestly, they're great. The people to get Alan Smudge-Smith, to get Kevin Campbell, to get guys like Clive Palmer, to get Warren Barton, to get these guys involved. Rocky Rocastle's son, like massive fan of the show. Like this is unbelievable people we're talking about here. This isn't just guys like us who just come and love football. These are real football men that people respect and love listening to. So please make sure you go over to the Gooners pod. Please make sure you go over to goonersversuscancer.com.
Yeah, and to watch the pod, there's a simple link. You can go to our YouTube channel at the Gooners Pod, but you can also go to 27hourpod.com.
Here we go.
27hourpod.com and starting on at 6 o'clock on Sunday night, that'll take you right to the show. So
excellent. Make sure you get involved, people. Listen, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much to all of you. Big up D, big up LB, big up Sava, and of course big up Mike. Thank you so much, man. You have to come on again. No diving into pools this time, man. There's no pool behind you no more. So I don't know how you want to end it, but you can end it in the way that you want.
Have me on again. Have me on again in the wintertime, and I will gladly do it with the unicorn behind me again.
Absolutely, man. 100%. Listen, people, make sure you do us a favor. Make sure you come follow all these guys, man. Make sure you go follow Sava at Football Heritage TV, who's heading towards 15K. D, back of the
No,
net.
he's not.
Make sure.
No, he's
That's
not.
your next target, right? What are you
I
heading
mean,
towards then?
I'm 51 away from 11.
But you're heading,
Target,
you're
right? 10,
heading, you're not heading away from it.
Yeah,
No,
there
I
you
like
go,
that.
man. You're not heading
That's
away
like
from it.
that's like you guys saying you're in a title race. You know what I mean? It's like
We're heading towards.
that's like D pretending that he supports a Premiership team. You know what I mean? Like the old yo-yo Crystal Palace relegation team.
Four games in, look at him now. Look at the smile on his face with Spurs. Look at this.
Hang on, you were just talking about getting Europe. You're Crystal Palace. The best, the most. Listen, the only thing your fans know about Europe is when you go on holiday. You've got no business being in Europe. Don't worry about that.
I mean,
all that good faith we just built up has just gone out the window.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, Sava, you're talking about silverware. I mean, that's a bit rich coming from a Spurs fan as well. But here we are.
I know. How many league trophies and European trophies you got? Oh, that's right.
When was the last time you won one?
Doesn't matter. What's the best thing you've won? Isn't it the Zenith Data Trophy?
Yeah.
Does anyone know what that is? Like,
have you ever won that?
No, we were busy. We were busy winning league titles, FA Cups, and European trophies, man.
1967. Yep. 1967. 100%.
And you've lost the show. You've lost control.
Yeah, sorry, Dad. Sorry.
God, man. But listen,
Blame D.
Make sure you go follow Football Heritage TV and get Sava towards 11K or 15. It's still
man.
kind of it. No worries, man. Back of the nest. Make sure you go follow D if you want to go and follow Crystal Palace and of course football content. Make sure you go follow It's LB and make sure you go follow Mike at the Gooners Pod and of course goonersversuscancer.com. Please make sure you like and subscribe to this. I don't think we're many at all off of 12K, which is our next target. So that's amazing, people. So make sure you get us there and we will see you next time. Take it easy.